Hi, this is Phil's Record World. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to look at the repairs I've done on this Magnavox W748 model turntable. It's an automatic return turntable with the 70s stacker long needle. And so this was not looking like this when I got it. I've completed the repairs on it now. This had masking tape holding the cover onto the plinth, and so I've been able to remove the old masking tape with Goo Gone. The platter rubber mat was curled up at a 45-degree angle with only this area still glued down and everything flipped up. And we had masking tape and dirt and debris all over and tape along the tone arm. And so this one was one that I was able to bring back to life. I don't know that I normally would have repaired one, but it belonged to a friend of mine who had inherited from his grandmother and wanted to keep the memory of his grandmother alive. And so I agreed to completely rebuild this unit, and to start with, replace the long spindle from the stacker here, which would be this, with a short spindle. So I'll show you that I will keep the long spindle, but they are a pain in the neck. I didn't try to use any stacker features, but I wanted to leave the original look of the record player intact as I could as possible. But these are a pain in the neck, and they're hard to load a record, and so we have the short spindle. I was able to re-glue the rubber mat down with some E600 rubber cement, and then I did decide to leave this arm. Didn't really want to alter the look of it, but as you flip this arm up out of the way, you can see how the platter then is removable. There's a clip here, but I've chosen not to put the clip back on, as the clip that was on it was bent and causing friction here and along the platter. As I give it a hand spin, you can see how nice free spinning that platter is now. It was completely stuck and frozen when I got it, and the motor didn't turn when I got it. And so now as I show you how the on feature works, it doesn't have auto cueing, and you just click it on, and as it turns on, then you release this from the clip, and you move the cueing lever up. I don't have a record on it, but I do want to show you that's how you would set it up, and then re-cue it down or move it by your hand and cue it back down. The cueing lever was stuck and wouldn't move it up and down. I've cleaned all the assembly. The anti-skate spring was disconnected after I did get all of it working. Still couldn't get it to track properly, and so I've been through every function on this. It is a 3-speed record player with 33, 45, and 78, although you would have to change the cartridge out to play a 78, although they do play and make sound. This is an Audio-Technica AT10 cartridge and stylus, and so it has a conical stylus on it. And as you flip to the 45, it should start going faster now. And then as the 78 flips up, you can see how nicely it's fast. And you really do have to slam this thing through, as the lever, it's like a shaft and a escalator type of thing that moves into the 3 different positions. I'll show you underneath. And so we can go back all the way down to 33 RPM. And then the auto return feature is not functional. I was not able to bring the auto return back on it, so you do have to manually cue it back off and then flip your stop off button there. And so I've showed you that it does cue nicely up and down. I'll show that again. And the tracking here, while I'm on top and then I'll open and flip it upside down, has just a plus and minus, and with a tracking force scale, I'm able to calibrate that to 4 grams of tracking force and approximately 3 notches on this anti-skate notch here, which would represent about 75% anti-skate compared to the tracking force scale pressure. So I'm going to turn this over here. This is nice on a hinge. Cover cleaned up about as good as you could hope for, and with some furniture polish I was able to clean up the wood base pretty good, and pretty easy to get underneath. like now I can take the platter off. I've taken the short spindle off and set that aside here. And I can take this platter off by simply releasing it. There's a clip normally, like I said, but I've chosen not to replace the clip. It's a pain in the butt. And then you have your bearing assembly here, which I had completely cleaned and with rubbing alcohol and used 3-in-1 oil. So I'm going to put some paper towel down in there to hold those bearings so they don't just pop out. And I want to show this is an idler wheel assembly. So it clicks onto this drive pulley and your 3 different settings then, as I can show you what we were just doing. It draws it into the top area, which spins the wheel. The pulley spins the wheel, and then the wheel will spin on the outside of the platter as it makes contact going around, and that's what your driving is. And then your next section at 45 will drop that to the lower section here, and again stay on the same contact. I'll show you how I've rebuilt all these things. And then as you get into 75, now see it doesn't want to hit right because the platter's not on it. But once the platter's on it, we saw it worked great on 78. So with what the issues were is that this would not engage. As I've run my on and off, you see this piece slides down, this arm slides down, engaging this. But I've had to add 2 springs, one underneath to draw the idler wheel assembly in, and one here to counterbalance it directly on the gear in a position that it holds the platter. And like we saw at 78, there's 3 different areas that it has to drop at, but knowing that when it's hitting the platter on that 78, it's just in the right spot where it is going to catch just right, and you wouldn't see it because the platter has to hold that spot in line. But so this was completely gummed up. I've had to take the motor apart and clean it from underneath, and I'll show you that. I removed the idler wheel with its C-clip here, so you just take your screwdriver and gently hold your finger, and on the back end there's a little notch so you can get a small screwdriver in and hold your finger. As I've cleaned those things and got the motor back to life, I still could not get that into engage, and so underneath I will show you the first spring that will draw it in to position here, and then the second spring just holds it into the proper alignment so that it does catch the outside rim of the platter. And I can turn this over. It does unplug from the RCA cables, and the power cord do unplug underneath. But I think for our purposes, I may just lay it across the back. This is the easy way when you're trying to check in something. Gently make sure you have a free space for the toner. Okay, the motor, here, I'm going to turn this over here a little bit, right spot, has 4 little nuts, and I was able to take the back of the motor plate off without removing the pulley assembly, clean everything with rubbing alcohol and Q-tips, and then reapply 3-in-1 oil there. This is your speed selector, and so as you run it through its different speeds, as I lift it up, you can see how it'll drop and raise. And so this one, I've had to remove this clip here and raise and lower this and clean the entire shaft assembly with rubbing alcohol thoroughly several times, and same inside, and then re-lube this area with 3-in-1, and I took white lithium grease and reapplied it to the platter area, chassis where it runs against that. And so now I have it clean going up and returning down the way it's supposed to. Like I said, the return feature was inoperable, and this would have been the carousel thing where, depending on where you were, it would drop into the grooves. But as it was coming around this wheel, it would seem to slide off. This pin would try to hold itself into the grooves, but what I was finding is that the pin wouldn't stay in the groove as you went through and around. It would jump off, make the tone arm do crazy things, and as I was going through it trying to find how to keep it into its groove, ultimately it jammed up and broke the little pawl that would run off of this gear that would tell it when it's time to return it. And so I was not able to find very much online with this model at all, and I did not see any free manuals, and certainly not any parts that I could find as replacements. So I've had to abandon the auto return feature Then as I turn this around again, I can show you the cueing lever. I think I just need to take my toner and put it back on here real quick. Excuse my arm. I just want to make sure my toner arm's stuck. Now I can take this back over here, spin it around and show you. On this side is your cueing lever, and as I can show you now by releasing the tone arm from the clip, that this would not stay up in the up position, it just would stay down, and even when it went down, it wouldn't move very far because this was all gummed up, so I was able to clean that out. There's a set screw on the other side, and loosen it a little bit, create some space to clean it a little bit, and put some new 3-in-1 oil there. And now I have a cueing lever that's operational there. I just want to clip this back in here. Then here is, if I can show you where the anti-skate spring is off of this little pulley. You can barely see this little spring, and it comes right onto this little notch on this white plasticky piece. And that was completely unhooked. And after I did get it working, I could not get it to track properly, and so I climbed back underneath to find that this spring had been disconnected. So I cleaned up the connection, I made a nice U, and put it right back there where that's supposed to be. And like I said, then your power on function being this one, you can see how this assembly slides to click to this, and that's what turns the whole thing on. And it does come back into this area. So a lot of cleaning where every contact would make contact with the chassis and the lever. And as I can turn it around, you can see where, as I click it on and off, you can see this piece engaging and disengaging on that gear. This is the other spring that looked like it belonged there but was missing because it had a notch on the back of the shaft here, and there was already a hole in the turntable, so I went to my spring department and put one in there. Now that slides it all where, oops, just knocked it off. That slides it all where it's supposed to be, and holds it in place, and that's easy to put back on. I think that was the better part of my repairs on it. I was able to keep the original RCA cables, and this does unplug, the power supply does unplug, so I was able to remove everything from the actual base. The base is nice. Here's the actual model number, I believe. The W748 with the serial number, and I guess that would have been gone in here somewhere. But I'll leave it there. I have a broken part. This was the pawl that would have gone underneath of this white piece here to click the auto return, but that was the piece that spit out at me. And I have the long spindle, and then here was this clip that you can see I could probably bend it back into place, but it was just not bent. It's bent and rubs, and I think it's better left undone. So that's this W748 Magnavox, made in England. You can see on the tag here. And, you know, this one's going to be a survivor, and hopefully somebody will enjoy it for another generation. It was very stubborn, but once it came to life, it's playing like $1 million. And I'm grateful I had the opportunity to learn a little bit more on this one, Custo Mods. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave a comment. And if you like this video, please subscribe.